We're running a bit slow. Okay, we're almost there. If you guys could see, there's like a little bar that shows when I'm full power. So we're good.
Yeah, it's
And we
on.
are live. And bear with me, I'm about to record.
Perfect.
And we're good.
Great.
Thanks, Patrice.
Thank you, Patrice. Good morning, everyone. My name is Erin. I'm the MAPC president, and I am going to call the MAPC Executive Committee to order on December 17th, 2025 at 11:38 a.m. First order of business is we're going to call roll. So if everyone could come off mute for a second, I'd really appreciate it so we can kind of make this as expeditious as possible. All right, here we go. Imai.
Present.
Colette.
Present.
Keith.
Present.
Karen. Jen. Tom D.
Present.
Whitney.
Present.
John D.
Present.
Sarah D. Tom G. Mo.
Here.
Sagoon. Tabor.
Here.
Robert. Sarah L.
Here.
Okay. Angie. Peter.
Here.
Vienna.
Here.
Okay. Vandana. Claire. Sam.
Here.
Steve S. Juan. Elaine.
Here.
And Erin here. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. All right, first order of business is the approval of minutes from November 19th, 2025. I'm just going to ask for a motion to put on the consent agenda if there are no questions, comments, or edits.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Thank you. Motion made by John DePriest and second made by Mo. It has now gone on the consent agenda. All right, next up is the treasurer's report. Take it away, Treasurer Sam.
Thank you, President Aaron. Hello, everybody. Today we are looking at the October 2025 income statement, which is month 4 of FY26. And it's the first month of the second quarter of FY26 from our perspective. The numbers all are good. I'll draw your attention to the overhead rate, which is kind of our thermometer about how we're doing. You'll notice that for the month of October, we're really very low at 110.6%. That is well underneath our approved rate of 127.8%. And even for the year to date, we're at 118.2%. So that means that our administrative expenses are less than were anticipated, and our direct labor is actually hitting almost right directly on the mark. So the first point I would like to make is that we're doing very well on direct labor. So congratulations to everybody at the MAPC team who's getting people to build to their projects. Very good. We like that. Don't worry, our overhead rate will go up. Anna has already looked at the November numbers, and we've got a couple of items coming up. We've got people going out on FMLA. That gets billed to administrative costs. And then we've got some unfilled administrative positions that will show up fairly soon in these budget numbers. So nothing else to report at this time. Numbers are good, and we expect some changes in the months to come as we look forward into the new year. That concludes the treasurer's report.
Awesome. Are there any questions or comments at this time? I'm not seeing any. So with that, I'm just going to ask, thank you. I'm going to ask for a motion at this time to put it on the consent agenda for approval.
Well,
I'll make that motion.
Nope.
Or second.
It's okay. I'm going to have the motion made by Colette and second made by Tabor. And with that, it's on the consent agenda. Okay, next up on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report. Take it away, Executive Director Lizzie.
Thanks, Erin. Appreciate it. So hopefully most of you received the Executive Director's Report this month. There's a number of things I just want to call out because it's really great work across the agency. I wanted to highlight first some of the work happening in the clean energy team around the Municipal Energy and Sustainability Managers Academy. This is a really cool effort. We got a grant from Mass CEC to be part of this training cohort for sustainability managers. And in total, there are 35 staff representing 76 municipalities, and 4 RPAs are actively participating in the training program. They've had about a little over half of the sessions and more to come, but it's really great. And I'm very excited that we get to be a part of it and kind of actually connect ourselves a little more closely to Mass CEC. I also wanted to call out the Stoughton Climate Action Plan ambassadors' work. So we are doing a climate action and resilience plan in Stoughton, and as part of the project and like a bit of a community engagement effort, we have these ambassadors for the plan, and they were kind of each charged with thinking about how they want to introduce the work to their community. And so I wanted to highlight it because in the pictures that we included on the left side, there's a photograph of one of the ambassadors reading to an elementary school, and they facilitated a discussion with young people about climate change. And then they also, one of the ambassadors created like a series of pamphlets that they've been leaving at a lot of local area events. And it's just like a really interesting and creative way to think about our community engagement work, where we're actually elevating folks in the community to help us lead on some of this messaging as well. And I think you all know that I really love when we have like a civics component to our planning work, because I feel like that's part of how we steward it for the next generation. And so I was really excited to see that there was a youth component. Scrolling down, I'm going to highlight the sub-regional program hosted for the first time a municipal engagement event with the MPO. And it was extremely well attended, really trying to get at the transportation priorities and challenges that we're trying to address at the local level. And we had representation from all 8 sub-regions. Every MAPC sub-regional coordinator was there. And then a number of folks from the Boston Region MPO staff were also there. And it was a really great event. And it was also nice because it happened right before the MPO annual meeting. So it kind of felt like everybody was same paging themselves, which was really good. I do want to highlight the data services work. We received one, we've already received one. We anticipate receiving 2 grants from Mass GIS. And really the focus of both of these efforts are to better standardize the data collection that we're getting from cities and towns, and help Mass GIS think about how they standardize the information so that when it goes back out to the public, it's actually all kind of one voiced. So the first effort is kind of creating a set of recommendations to more effectively collect land use and zoning data from cities and towns, and then again, help to standardize that data. And then the second smaller grant, which we'll also support with some MAPC funds, is about standardizing the land use codes for the land parcel database, which relies on GIS text parcel data. So it's very wonky, but it's one of those sweet spots for MAPC where we're actually we're kind of in this space where we're helping the state do better data collection from cities and towns, and then data aggregation and reporting back out to cities and towns. So I'm really excited about this work. I want to talk just very briefly about the energy affordability bill. I don't want to scoop Norman because I think he's going to talk a little bit about this too. But I do just want to flag that this is something we're watching very closely because a redraft of the governor's energy affordability bill came out surprisingly a few weeks ago. They didn't end up taking a vote on it in the House, but it's something we're watching very closely. And I just wanted to call out that the team worked really quickly when we thought that the bill was actually going to get a hearing and move, and sent out an action alert so folks could understand what was going on. And that action alert, I think, was really balanced and well received. I do really want to give a shout out and a highlight to the government affairs team. Buried in this little section here about Joint Rule 10 Day, which is the day by which almost all joint committees have to have held hearings on their bills. if the bill has been timely filed. There's some data here about the number of bills MAPC has taken a position on, which is over 80 pieces of legislation, which is up from, I think, 22 when I started at MAPC. We submitted over 85 testimony letters. We participated and had like a physical presence at 35 different hearings. We also, for the first time, had the highest number of MAPC staff ever also testify in front of the State House. We have a lot of extremely awkward pictures in the hearing rooms of MAPC staff testifying. So we had 16 staff who testified across 12 different departments. And that includes even some of the departments who wouldn't ordinarily be in a space to testify. So not just our planning teams. And then the government affairs team facilitated more than 75 meetings with legislative offices and 8 offices in our federal delegation. And I can't even explain to you what an enormous amount of work that is for such a small and mighty team. And it really has had an impact inside the building because folks are excited and interested in talking to us about the work, and that makes a difference in policy outcomes. Another piece I'm really excited to highlight, scrolling down to public health, is the opening of the school-based community health center, which is related to the work that we've been doing for over 5 years in Randolph. We've had a lot of support on this project. You can see Congresswoman Presley there, who helped secure additional funds for this at the local level to really increase wellness projects in the town of Randolph. This community health center, school-based community health center, fills an enormous gap that was in the town because there were no outpatient facilities or urgent care centers. And this will basically provide primary and pediatric care in a school-based setting. And it's an incredible thing to see it get across the finish line and open. And Barry Keppert, our director of public health, you heard from last month, gave a real shout out to Heidi Stucker, who's our former assistant director inside the public health team. She really, this project was her baby. And so getting it off the ground has actually been really wonderful. Scrolling down to transportation, I encourage you to read a little bit more about the Burlington Mall Area Mobility Plan because the team and the town are really taking this Park Once approach where to try to increase walkability in Burlington, which I think folks know is a pretty car-centric community. This Park Once idea is that people would actually have greater access to different types of shopping and amenities in Burlington. And only not have to use their car for every single trip, which would be great. And then I want to highlight the Malden River Initiative, if you scroll down a little more. So this is a project that I actually started to push when I was in the deputy role. And the goal was really to think about all of the work that we have done in what we're calling the Mystic River area. So that's basically Medford, Malden, and Everett. We've done just a ton of planning work in those communities over the past several years. And to actually look at the ways that we as an agency can help these communities actually implement and advance the work that's included in those plans so that it's not just we've created a plan on a shelf. Even though I'm sure it's a beautiful plan on a shelf, we really want to get it across the finish line towards implementation. So we started this initiative about a year ago internally to really identify what some of that work was and how we could try to advance it. The focus this year has really been on advancing community engagement and conversations with community-based organizations that could also help to kind of like own and advance some of the planning work that we've done. And we held many one-on-one conversations with community-based organizations. And then we had an in-person convening in November to kind of elevate some of these issues. And then just last week, and I think it'll probably make it into the next executive report, the arts and culture team led an internal mapping exercise for MAPC staff to really better understand the region and then also think about how we can reimagine it. So what opportunities are there? It's been a really long time since we've done that kind of mapping exercise at MAPC, and I really love the fact that it was led by our arts and culture team because it brings that humanities and storytelling lens to our kind of traditional mapping and planning work. And then lastly, I just want to highlight, we have 2 new staff who started this week. Colette started in our community engagement department. She actually has a background in social work and community organizing. She's really tremendous. I think she's going to bring a lot to the team. And then Raina joined our public health department as part of our regional training hub, where we help cities and towns actually do better training around inspectional services. And she has a background in the academic research setting, and she's going to bring a lot to the conversation at MAPC. And I can stop there, but I'm glad to take any questions.
Yes, Imai?
Thanks, Lizzie. For the GIS coordination, is there any like outreach or input opportunities we should be looking out for that we can pass on to our GIS folks to help standardize this?
Not yet, but I think that will be coming in the future. We are also working with a couple of other RPAs because it is a statewide initiative, and we kind of there's actually like a pretty good group of folks through MARPA that are already kind of talking about like GIS and data issues. And so I think there will be a component where we're reaching back out to cities and towns for some more information and kind of understand how things happen at the local level too. So stay tuned. We're still in early days, but the project is moving really quickly. If I'm not mistaken, it's dollars that need to be spent basically inside the next year. So fast.
Great. Thank you, Imai. Thank you, Lizzie. Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Lizzie. I just wanted, you mentioned in the Malden River, the incorporation of humanities and the storytelling, which I know also in your report was the Jefferson Avenue study in Salem, which also incorporates that. I just wanted to give feedback. It's been really great. And, you know, Avanti and Josh and the whole team are doing a great job. But what's been fun is like the typical existing conditions analysis that happens, like, you know, that's really important. But the approach of incorporating stories and history in it has really made it more enjoyable, I think, for everybody, whether you're a professional planner or just a community member. And so for other folks that haven't experienced this, it's like the level of engagement of a survey. So the survey is going out, but in it are little trivia questions. And like, as you go through it, so it's gamifying it a little bit. It's an engagement that has really been fun. So just wanted
Thank you so much for saying that. It's really hard when I go through the executive report to like pick like my favorite things to highlight for everyone. But I do actually encourage folks to look at the blurb about the Salem Jefferson Ave projects. We put together this like really neat booklet. It's really beautiful. And I think, you know, one of the things that I think is really important about our work, particularly in this moment, is that we do actually have a responsibility in terms of like placemaking and placekeeping to center some of those stories in history, because it's always changing. And other people will give us narratives that are not actually our own. And so it's important. Part of the storytelling work is actually reclaiming that for our communities and for our residents. So it's really cool work. There'll be more to come on that. But Tom, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. The team will be so touched to hear that you said that.
Great. Mo, you came off mute. Do you have a question or? Okay. I just didn't want to skip you. Any other? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have just 2 last things from the executive side to just share with the executive committee. I wanted to let folks know we recently signed on to an amicus brief that CHAPA is leading around 3A. This is a suit that's been moving for a long time. We had previously brought to the officers approve MAPC weighing in with an amicus brief, a brief that MAPC filed, which actually Andrea worked on a lot. And so CHAPA is leading this amicus effort, and we recently signed on to that, and I wanted to let folks know. And then I also just wanted to give folks a heads up, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in our January meeting, is I am making some organizational changes internally to the agency, really to try to affect the vision that I shared with all of you when I first moved into the role about trying to make our work more regional and try to actually bring our departments a little closer together to influence and impact our planning work. So some of those changes are going to be happening in January. We have a pretty thoughtful rollout plan with staff. I've started having some conversations with directors to try to affect some of these changes. And I will share with you kind of a robust new organizational structure, because I assume that you all love org charts as much as Andrea and I do. But I will share that back with the committee, but just wanted to give folks a heads up.
Great. Thank you so much, Lizzie. I'll pause really quick for questions or comments. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Sorry, just Lizzie, if you wouldn't mind clarifying, what is the case that the amicus brief is regarding, the CHAPA case?
Sure. It's around the lawsuit that's been ongoing around the MBTA Communities Act, or 3A. There's still some outstanding legal issues that are actually making their way up to the SJC. And so CHAPA is leading essentially an organizational effort. I think a number of other organizations have had outreach from CHAPA as well to sign on. I'm glad to share it with you separately if you want.
Got it. Thank you. Just curious.
Yeah.
Great. All great questions, all great feedback. All right. And with that, I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the report of the Legislative Committee. And I'm going to call on Legislative Chair Keith.
Thanks very much, President Aaron. The Legislative Committee met a week ago. We have been meeting on a monthly basis. No recommendations of legislation to be supported by the Executive Committee this month. Last month's meeting, as we reported, we got a briefing from the Massachusetts Municipal Association on its so-called perfect storm study, report on the fiscal crisis facing local communities. Since then, I note, and I've been briefed elsewhere on the list of recommendations that MMA just issued, which I'm sure the team is keeping track of, and that many on the call are as well. So appreciate MAPC working closely with its other agencies that are in our space. Appreciate all the work that's being done by our government affairs team as some things move through the legislature and some don't. But thanks. And who I can't see who's on the call that I should call on next. Norman, I see.
Yep, Norman and Georgia are
okay,
both
Norman.
here.
I'm happy to jump in. Hold on, let me
Yeah.
share my screen really quickly. So we have a nice December PowerPoint for y'all that hopefully will not be too repetitive for those of you that were on LegCom last month. Let's see. Awesome. Can folks see? Fantastic. So just really quick, I know that we shared some of this with the LegCom folks. This is the process for how a bill becomes a law. Many of you know this. We also shared some information about where we are in the budget process. We're expecting the governor's budget towards the end of January, and once that pops out, we will make sure to share some insight into what's in that, changes, fun things that are potentially coming down the line. You know, obviously, for many of you know, it's a good opportunity to see some potential policies put forward, as well as some changes in funding strategies. One thing that I also think is really helpful is just this Massachusetts legislative timeline from our friends over at Transportation for Massachusetts. This gives you sort of a sense of how long the process really is and sort of how things go. I know a lot of folks that I speak with that are not as versed in the legislative process will always talk about, oh, you know, Norman, we haven't heard about, you know, too many bills passing. That's because we are here in the legislative process, and most of the bills getting passed really sort of happen here. So we'll start seeing perhaps some bigger things getting over the final hurdles in the coming months. But it's you know, that's the stretch where the bigger things are potentially to get done or not to get done. Quick legislative update for folks. George, I'm not sure if you want to talk about municipal empowerment if you're on, but I'm happy to do it too.
I can jump in. Hi everyone. So we did have both hearings for the Municipal Empowerment Act, which was split into 3 committees. I think we may have shared this with this group before, but had a large presence at the Joint Committee on Municipalities and Regional Governments to talk about provisions such as permanent remote and hybrid meeting law, procurement updates, and some other pieces there. We also participated in the revenue hearing. I think we are quite optimistic about some of these pieces that are in the Joint Committee on Municipalities and Regional Government, and the revenue pieces have more of an uphill battle as we're looking towards this next year, thinking about how we can raise additional money for cities and towns. Although, as Keith mentioned at the beginning, certainly this is a time where we want to be looking at all options for how to increase revenue because of the challenges cities and towns are facing. So certainly keeping a close eye on this, and have sent letters of support from municipal CEOs, from select board members, from MEPC. So if there's more interest in talking about this over the coming months, this is certainly an area where we will continue to push to help ensure this bill crosses the finish line. Back to you, Norman, if there's anything else.
So want to talk about the energy affordability bill, as Lizzie mentioned quickly. As this is now a little bit more of old news now, since it came out last month. But this is a big departure from sort of what the governor put out in her bill. Not to say that the bill is all completely bad. There are some good things in it that we have recognized that could help address some of the long-term policy goals that this group has endorsed. One of the nice things is that it addresses net metering. I can't speak today. Excuse me. Net metering caps, and also takes some action against competitive electrical suppliers. It doesn't fully ban them, as MAPC has endorsed. We will continue to push for that, although that too will be a little bit of an uphill battle. But at least will require them to submit a yearly licensing fee and do trainings for employees. And for those of you that are not familiar with competitive electrical suppliers, those are the folks that usually knock on your door, or, or maybe outside the supermarket, try and get you to enroll in a non-National Grid Eversource energy plan that can potentially spike after time. Some big negatives in this bill that got a lot of pushback were making our 2030 climate goals non-binding. One of the interesting things about that, though, is the reasoning that we could understand why that was put forward is that folks thought that the Commonwealth could get sued if we do not hit those 2030 goals. But the bill also included sections that would block the state from implementing any sort of greenhouse gas reductions if it unduly increased energy rates for users or impacted our economic competitiveness, which, interestingly, I'm not an attorney, I know some of you are, would seem to open us up to even wider ranges of litigation. It also caps mass save, which I know a lot of folks on this call had concerns with, and a lot of our mayors and managers as well. And it would also roll back the renewable portfolio standard percentages from 3% to 1%. That's the percentage of renewable energy that utilities are required to procure each year. The good news about this is that we saw something that was sort of a little bit unprecedented. There was so much pushback against this bill that even though it was reported out favorably to House Ways and Means, it sounds like House Ways and Means are probably going to do a complete redraft of this bill. I would imagine that that redraft will probably be something that's between this bill and what the governor put out. Probably won't include some of our priorities, but it will at least be a closer starting point for legislative negotiations when it gets to a conference committee than this bill that was reported out by TUE. I will also note too that the environmental bond bill was reported out. It was reported out without any changes to what the governor filed. So folks, if there are things in there that folks were excited about, congratulations, they're still there. And if there are things that folks wanted to see in there that are not, were not in there when the governor wrote it. They are still not in there. It will go to bonding for a hearing at some point in January, likely, and then we'll just send Senate Ways and Means, where probably the first major redraft will happen. And we will make sure to update you all when that happens. But it's got a lot of good things, like you'll see there on the slide. We've touched on the past, major increase for MVP funding, island end, flood resilience funding, 25 million to capitalize, or so these are some of our priorities, excuse me, and also includes flood disclosure for residential properties. I also want to take a quick moment to touch upon some news that you all may have seen recently, that the Globe endorsed one of our priorities, which would finally codify the definition for site plan review. Essentially, what's in this bill would allow communities to maintain local control, and it would also standardize the process for what site plan review entails. This bill isn't doing much more than sort of codifying what already is standard practice through case law. But for those of you that are long-term planners, you know that there is no definition for site plan review here. Some concerns with the article that we heard were that it sort of demonizes municipalities for them using site plan review as a cudgel to stop projects. Good news is that, as I shared with LegCom, it was great to see that none of the MAPC municipalities were used as a bad example or named explicitly. So that's always great to know that we are all acting in best faith. And I think that there are also some concerns that I've heard as well that this could sort of impede local control, and sort of allow developers to run ragged a little bit over municipalities. I would also say that's not as much the case, just because municipalities are still allowed to decide what falls under site plan review through their local zoning ordinances. So we were pretty excited to see it. It's a broad coalition of folks, and I think that one of the good things that you see with a bill like this is that everybody, I think, has a couple of small changes that they would like to see. They all agree that it's a good bill. It's not a perfect bill, and so that's nice to see some compromise on that front. And finally, want to highlight some of the upcoming legislative breakfasts that we going on starting in February. Yes, Buzz.
Good. Finish up. I'll wait till you're done. Thanks.
Cool. Finally, there's a couple of the legislative breakfasts that are coming up. Those are always fun. It's good to see some of the state and local folks there talking about some of their priorities for the session, and we hope that you'll be able to join us. And with that, I think that's it. Happy to take any questions, starting with Buzz.
Hi, thanks, Norman. I really do want to thank you for agreeing that it's worth conversing about this site plan legislation, because I think a number of us had a significant problem, and I'll illustrate it by quoting Lizzie earlier. She's talking about the wonders of doing placemaking. Placemaking is where you make your community unique and interesting, and the wave of regulatory reform and including the site plan definition takes away, the pejorative term is community character. Somehow that became a pejorative term, but placemaking remains good. And I wonder the extent to which at least our municipal executive committee representatives worry about the idea that site plan review used in the right way is, of course, how we worry about things like what buildings look like and whether Dunkin' Donuts has to make a change to their sign that's compatible with the community. And I think, Norman, correct me if I'm wrong, but the bill sort of says you can only use site plan to do specific things called for in the bylaw. It seems to me that it encumbers municipal planners in a very difficult way. And I just hope you guys would look at it and we all look at it a little bit more. And I thank you for wanting to be willing to do that with at least Sandra and others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, when this was written with Rep. Kasser's office, I really do want to stress that this was like a really broad stakeholder group. There was folks from AIPCA, NIOP, CHAPA. It was a wide-ranging group of folks for sure.
Well, as the report, if I may, as the report says, it's really is the intent is very good. Site plan has been used to delay, encumber, and in some cases defeat lots of really good projects. It's the other end of this. Are there any tools left for, except maybe conservation commissions, which can get people to plant trees in buffer zones? I mean, there is very little left that allows a town's regulatory process to keep the town being unique and interesting. And I really do think that will be a problem going forward. And I hope we can all look at it. It isn't that this is bad to define site plans. It's just, there are fewer tools left, and we ought to remember that towns are there for a reason.
I'll jump in too real quick just to clarify that the bill is trying to clarify some parameters around site plan review, but it's not prohibiting design guidelines or other specific ways of regulating what the design of a building looks like. It's just trying to prohibit having more arbitrary approval criteria like community character, but then not really defining that and then leaving it up to a subjective, whoever is going through and reviewing plans. So I think that it is actually leaving quite a few tools on the table to really keep the current architecture and design that you have in communities, but also giving flexibility for creativity in the process.
Yeah.
I would not have started this discussion if it were not for language in those two bills that actually say site plan can only be used for things specifically enumerated in the zoning bylaw. It seems, pardon my invoking lawyerless because I've never been a litigator, but if I were a developer, I could find lots of ways to have almost anything that I would want to have tossed out, anything that we all think is aesthetically pleasing. Anyway, that's enough. I won't take any more of your time, Madam Chairman.
I just want to jump in and just offer thanks to Norman because he's really stewarding this legislation, pinch hitting from when Matt Walsh went over to EOHLC, and so really kind of jumped in, but has held that coalition space, which is so important if we're actually going to get something across the finish line. And then I want to echo what Andrea said. I actually think there's a lot in the bill that kind of encourages communities to do a little bit of that create your own destiny and really define more clearly what it is that they want to see at the local level and what it is that they want to prioritize. And I think that that's important because it changes over time. And so I actually think there's a lot of room here to kind of meet all the needs. And I think the fact that there is a pretty balanced coalition table trying to move it forward is actually an important component of eventually getting something good across the finish line. The only other thing I just want to say is that in some of the back and forth we had about this legislation, Buzz brought up this expedited permitting manual that MAPC worked on 20 years ago for cities and towns. We actually recently resurfaced that because the state is interested in trying to update it. They're not interested in investing a lot of dollars in that update. So the regional planning agencies are kind of coming together to talk about how we might invest some of our own dollars to update that work. And I see it as very connected to this effort as well. So just it was funny, Buzz, to see you pull out that report from the MAPC archives from 20 years ago, because we literally had just circulated it internally as well.
Well, I was the person who corralled the cats of MARPA to put it together, but it was for at least 5 or 6 years, you couldn't get an economic development grant from the state unless you went down this checklist of best practices and looked at what you did. I think it's a really good way to deal with regulatory reform without encumbering. It was the idea was to make it good for developers as well as planners, and a lot of them remain good ideas that haven't been adopted by all towns yet. So I hope you can get it done. Thank you.
Great. Imai?
Okay, thanks. Regarding the energy affordability bill, it seems to me kind of a somewhat severe reverse course of where, you know, the legislative sentiment has been around sustainability and clean energy. I'm surprised at things like backing off of mandatory targets or, percentage of renewables in the portfolio. And I'm just wondering, like, if you have any sense of like why this is happening. Is this, people who are perhaps feeling this way being more emboldened by the national political climate, or pressure becoming more from energy concerns who are more active in this, or other alternatives as to, um, you know, why this has shifted?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Imai. I think there's a couple different reasons. And honestly, when the bill first came out and the story actually like broke in Commonwealth, so everyone was sort of surprised. So when the story first came out, we spent a lot of time being like, why is this happening? I definitely think industry is helping to support and push this. I also think there's this general sentiment inside the State House that we've made these really ambitious targets. We don't have a federal partner who's going to help us try to actually get there. And so, but because we have these targets in legislation, we run the risk of being sued at the state level over and over and over again because we can't meet these targets. So I think there's like some mix of ill intent and somewhat like cautious intent on the part of the legislature. And I think both of those things are like kind of led to this moment. I think the fact that the thing that gave me like pause in that thinking is that because it came suddenly and surprising, the bill was dropped. It was already 85 pages long. Like it was already a really robust, fully formed bill. It kind of makes you like wonder how that happened. And then right away, a whole bunch of industry groups were writing letters, writing action alerts saying they supported it. So that is the kind of thing that I'm like, okay, no, that's too far. I will say, like Norman said, it was pretty unprecedented that the House decided to stop the process even after the bill had been reported out. And I think that's because members were saying, I can't vote on this. Like my community is so supportive. In some instances, my community has already done these 16 things to try to advance sustainability or meet our local clean energy targets. Like don't pull us back from that because then we'll never be able to get there. We'll never be able to get developers who want to come and do those clean energy investments. So I think like reading the tea leaves, I don't think there was overwhelming support for the legislation that it was put out. I do think what you're going to see, because we have this time in between, is legislation that addresses some of those like legit concerns that are out there. We're using it as a moment to try to make the bill stronger in the ways that we already wanted to see it get stronger. And a number of other advocates are in that space too. And then the other piece is that I think like DPU just opened an investigation this week into like energy affordability and skyrocketing prices in general. That's not a bad conversation because the administration asked them to do that like 60 days ago. So I hope that it gives us a chance to actually talk about like what do we mean when we talk about energy affordability? How do we actually deliver real affordability to residents? What are some of the ways that we can do that while not saying we're going to make it impossible to meet our climate goals and then look, we never achieve them. So that's just moving us backwards.
Yeah, and the affordability issue in general has just become such a big thing, and this is a way to sort of take a bite at it. I think personally, in the short term, without sort of thinking too much about maybe the later term as much. Also, there's some fun, some fun, political back and forth too, in terms of folks may remember we almost didn't get a siting bill last year because of some of the internal relationships of committees. There's a new chair. There's language there was a language in the TUE report out that was, a particular jab at the Senate counterpart by blocking communities that were going to do the fossil free pilot from getting massive money to help with any of that. So, some of this too is just, negotiation tactics, I would imagine as well.
Lost my mouse. Sorry about that. Sam, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Well, just a comment or just an info piece. which is sort of a ledge committee, but it's more a general thing, maybe to everybody. There is currently a lawsuit happening in Cambridge challenging the inclusionary, and who knows how that'll play out. I think I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's about the nexus issue and sort of explaining where you got your numbers from. But that I could imagine that might have pretty broad sweeping ramifications depending on how that goes.
Yeah, we're watching that one for sure, Sam. Cambridge has got a Cambridge for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Anyway, just FYI.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding ledge? Well, thank you, Norman, Georgia, and Legislative Chair Keith for an update and presentation. Really appreciate that. All right, next up in the agenda is other business not known at the time of posting this agenda. I believe, Lizzie, you have a couple items?
Yeah, I don't have any announcements or big things, but I just wanted to, before we close, thank all of you for putting your trust in me this year. I'm still, very excited to be in this role and really excited for next year and all the good work ahead. We had a staff meeting earlier today. I shared this with some of you at the top of the call. And we were talking a little bit about places where we felt proud of work that we'd accomplished in 2025 and excited for work ahead in 2026. And I shared that for me in my faith tradition, like this is a season where we're asked to shed light into darkness. And I shared with staff, maybe a little bit too emotionally, that it's been a really hard year. And this past week has been so hard and really dark. And so that charge of like shining light into dark places and doing it like with intentionality and purpose and that sense of hope, it's hard. It's really hard work. But one of the things that I really love about this organization is that like people wake up every day trying to do that and to try to like preserve their joy and to expand hope. And I really believe that that's an act of resistance. And so, like I said, I just wanted to thank all of you for putting your trust in me to try to lead an organization into as a light-bearing organization into places that are dark. So I just wanted to wish all of you a happy holiday season and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Lizzie. Sam?
Well, just to return the happy holidays to you. Yes on the hope and down on the darkness. And then to really cheer you up, maybe sometime early-ish in the new year, you can give us an update on how we're being treated by our federal partners. How about that?
Yep. So
that can be your present to us, is let us know how it's going.
I will do that. Thanks. That's it for me, Erin.
Okay. And good job not holding. Thank you for being authentic, Lizzie. Thank you for, the well wishes and the thoughts. And I know we all really appreciate that. And we have all been very strong humans just now, because I don't see anyone physically crying yet. But I think a few of us were pretty close right there. So thank you for that. And
just a classic Wednesday at MAPC.
I mean, what is a Wednesday without a little midday sob, right?
Exactly.
All right. It means we just feel really deeply.
It's very important. The work is really important.
We're feeling, I would say on this call, we're feeling all the feels. So thank you so much for that. All right. So with that, at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda and to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All right. I am going to say that motion was made this time by Tom Daniel and seconded by Colette. That's okay with everyone. And, before we all vote and log off, I just want to, hope everyone has a wonderful end of the rest of the year and enjoy the holiday season, whatever holiday or holidays you celebrate. And I will see you in, it sounds wild, 2026, hopefully in person and on screen. So with that, if everyone could kind of come off mute, I'd really appreciate it. And here we go for roll call. Imai.
Hi, and happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Imai. Colette.
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
Karen. Jen.
Aye.
Tom D.
Aye.
Whitney.
Aye.
John D.
Aye.
Sarah. Tom G.
Aye.
Mo.
Aye.
Sagoon. Tabor.
Aye.
Robert. Sarah L. Angie. Peter.
Aye. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Viana.
Aye.
Vandana.
Aye.
Claire. Sam.
Aye.
Steve. Juan. Elaine.
Aye.
And Erin. Aye. And with that, we're going to adjourn at 12:28 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone. And I